Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Wired for Logic podcast. I'm Wes Ulmer, the CEO of LogicWire AI, and I have my guest today, Katherine Serrano, and she is the principal architect and founder of Rooted Architecture Studio. I'll let you take it away, Katherine. Tell us a little about yourself and your studio.
Yes, thank you for having me, Wes. So I started Rooted Architecture Studio back in July 1st of 2021. I officially launched it, and it started actually as a side hustle. I was still working in a firm in Manhattan. I'm located in New York. I should preface that. And I slowly transitioned into part-time with my old boss to close out projects. And by the beginning of 2023, I've been doing it full time. And now we're a small team. I have two drafters and a part-time executive assistant, and we're on that path of growing and improving. My company, though located in New York, also does work in New Jersey, and we really focus as a firm to design spaces that inspire, heal, and connect. I put those as the three main values because I really care about how architecture affects people mentally, physically, and socially. And also, part of my company that is a little bit unique than most is that I do run it bilingually. I was born in El Salvador and I came to the United States at the age of 7. And through life experiences, I realized that Latin communities, but also other minorities, have a hard time understanding building codes, zoning codes, anything nuanced in relation to architecture and construction. So I do aim my best to educate through various ways and really bring clients through the whole process so they feel the trust and empowered that like what they're doing is right and they're not getting in trouble, or if they have gotten violations, walking them through the process of how to rectify that. But besides that, as a whole, we do various types of projects. So I do work with homeowners, investors, business owners, healthcare, wellness providers, more on the private side. And I will also work with nonprofits and community groups. I've been blessed this year to be able to design my first Habitat for Humanity home for them. And I'm in the process of moving towards designing a second home with them. So I really like to keep it broad and really be able to touch different people and really showcase how important architecture really is in terms of wellness. Also, I talk about biophilic design, inclusivity, accessibility, and we talked a little bit about how I do speaking engagements. One of the biggest things that I really talk about is sensory friendly spaces for neurodivergent people. Whether you have autism, ADHD, OCD, anxiety, how you shape and design your spaces really can promote the spaces for you to feel good and actually function properly or not feel sensory overload, which even people who are neurotypical get sensory overload with this hustle and bustle of stressful life that we live in. So things like that, I really care about and talk about.
Nice. Well, I like how you get involved in the community and architecture is special to me. I own several technology companies, but I like architecture a lot because my dad actually used to be an architect back in the day. Many moons ago, but he had a small architectural firm. Also an entrepreneur, and that's where I get my entrepreneurial spirit. You are also an entrepreneur, so I feel like I have a connection with you.
Yeah.
I got my interest in technology back when he was actively practicing architecture. He doesn't anymore. He's in real estate now, but back when he started his architectural firm, you couldn't go buy computers. You had to build them. And so he would build the computers and I would watch him do that. And that's how I built an interest in technology, and which I still love to this day. But he would build the computers and then load the software, and you had to monkey with the memory settings to get AutoCAD to load right. And that was like AutoCAD version 1.0, I think, back in the day. And it was not what it is today. People get irritated with technology these days, but they don't understand the struggle that it used to be back when it was a lot more difficult, pre-Windows days when everything was in MS-DOS and memory management was garbage and all that kind of good stuff. But
Yeah.
fast forward to today, we do have some architectural clients. I've always appreciated architecture, both commercial and residential. Share maybe some of your favorite projects that you've worked on recently, maybe like a huge accomplishment, like the largest project you've ever done, or the one you're most proud of, or, share a couple stories with us.
Oh yeah, I would love that. And before I jump into that, you talked about how you got into technology and all that. The way I got into architecture was through construction. So it's interesting. Sometimes you don't get into your field directly through someone who was in that field, but like an adjacent. I had family who did construction, and I was 11 when I decided to be an architect because they wouldn't let me build. So they wouldn't, we go to construction sites. So they're like, no, it's in Spanish, we call it machismo. It's like, like this idea that, the women do certain things, men do others. So they're like, no, you're a girl. You shouldn't be able to you shouldn't be building. But figuring out that they build things based on drawings by an architect, my mom was like, all right, if I can't do it, I'll design it. So I tell you what to do. So that was my start into the field. But it grew as I learned more about the nuances of what we do. But in terms of projects, for Rooted Architecture Studio, my biggest project, which actually I was in the construction site this morning for, it's the building's a 72,000 square foot industrial building that we're renovating. We're in phase one, so we're renovating 42,000 of it. And it's for a high-end lighting manufacturer. They're called Allied Maker. They make
Okay.
beautiful crafted light fixtures. So it's been a pleasure working on that project because I've been able to do the full service, like from pre-design all the way into construction and coordinating with the contractor, but also the owners being design driven, like actual designers. It was a true collaboration in how to design the space, but also the details. So that's been really fun to kind of see through. Our goal is to finish that construction by March of 2026. So once that's all said and done, I can't wait to share how it looks. It's a really nice integration of design in the space while keeping the exterior to what it used to be. And it's in my hometown. So it's nice to kind of see that grow. And then other projects that I really appreciate working on it. I did in New Jersey, I did a clinical slash community space for a nonprofit.
Okay.
They're called perinatal, and they help Black women during prenatal and postpartum care. As many know, Black women has the highest percent mortality. So that when it comes to giving birth, so the idea of supporting them before and through the after they give birth, it gives them a higher chance. For support for the mothers and for the children. So it was nice to be able to create that community space and bring in my expertise in clinical, creating medical rooms that would work for them while staying within a 2,000 square foot footprint. So it's a tiny space, but we made the most out of it. And so yeah, that was really heartfelt. And then I think I've worked on a few additions, renovations for residential that, the clients make the big difference where you really dive into the uh, do you need a new space? Why are we adding? What's not working? And seeing the end result of it functioning properly for them. So that's always fun to do.
Interesting. So do you work with a lot of nonprofits or just a handful of them?
Just a handful. Like, besides just doing architectural service, I do get involved in a few nonprofits myself. I'm on board of a Latina Business Network in New
Okay.
York, and I am on an advisory board for Girls Inc. It's a nonprofit that educates girls in high school and middle school so they become strong and bold so they can actually speak up, which is something I connect with because growing up, I was very introverted. And once I went into my entrepreneurial journey is when I realized I needed to learn to better communicate and speak up and be able to share my story. So
It's
I,
good.
I like to feed into those different like buckets of my life in the best way I can.
Sure. We actually, I'm on the board of a nonprofit, and we had one of our events last night. So we benefited a local nonprofit radio station. So that the board is technically not an actual nonprofit. We don't take any money. We have networking events that feature a nonprofit each month, and the
Ah,
money collected goes directly to the nonprofit. So the nonprofit actually collects the money. But anyway, we raise awareness for various nonprofits. We do 11 of them a year. We don't do one in December because so many people are gone on vacation and whatnot. But we benefit like Ferrari Kid. I don't know if you ever heard of Ferrari Kid. They're a nonprofit. They're like a Make-A-Wish Foundation for kids with cancer. So there's a local family that maybe has a child with terminal cancer, and they'll take the child out for the day shopping, maybe have some volunteers dress up as like their favorite superheroes. And it's a once in a lifetime experience for them, and take them around the Ferrari, that kind of thing. So
right.
we, Ferrari Kid, KROV, the radio station. There's a couple other ones that provide food and things like that for the homeless that we featured throughout the years. And It's just a good cause. It's a good
Yeah.
cause, and it's a great networking opportunity. I love networking and talking to people. That's one of the reasons I love doing the podcast, is I get to meet people outside of the normal sphere of influence. The monthly mixers we have, for the most part, it's the same people each month, right? There's some new people that come from time to time, but the bulk of them are the same ones that you see each and every month. It's good to do podcasts, and good to step outside your normal sphere of influence and build those relationships with people. So I definitely appreciate you coming on today. I'm enjoying our conversation so far, and I'd like to hear more about some of your other projects. Like, let's talk about the residential side.
Mhm.
What, I'm guessing, is it remodels or is it brand new builds, or what do you typically focus on the residential side?
They do both, but I think the way the state of that we're in, and also where I live on Long Island, New York, so we're east of New York City, the five boroughs. There is very little actual empty land to build new. So a lot of the work I do are additions, full gut renovations, or there are times where we do find that land, or I work on subdivisions where we, take a big lot, we were able to potentially subdivide it and build something new, so forth. But yeah, most of the work I do is like major renovations and additions for people, which I think it's always nice to do because I'm a millennial. I grew up watching HGTV, and their mass society has this vision of what design and architecture is based on those shows, and I find it nice. I find it nice to be able to talk them through the process and explain them like that's just 10% of what it is, or it's not realistic. So, for instance, a lot of those show projects maybe in Texas, but the cost of things in New York is completely different. So they can't compare a one to one what a renovation in the show would be in terms of year, but also in explaining to them and deep diving into the psychology of what do you need? Like, I know you love what you saw there. Like, I know you like modern, but is it efficient for your day to day tasks? Or
Right.
because everybody loves open concept, but open concepts can go so far that then you get overwhelmed or there's no privacy at all. So how do you actually create a flow of sequences of spaces to have that open public spaces for the family to gather, but at the same time, how can it be really private too, and create those moments of like just being with self or an office space or things like that. So that's one of my favorite parts, is like diving into the how and why of the space and then creating a space plan of schematic designs that function for their needs.
Interesting. Okay. What what's probably the most unique, or the most, I guess, the project you're most proud of on the residential side?
Project I'm most proud of. Um, that's a hard one to think about because I there's certain clients that like I always appreciate like when they come back or they refer me, like they talk great about the space. So I would if I'm like really gonna like think of things. I've done a lot of cool projects recently that they haven't even been built yet. We're in the process of getting variances or still like finalizing design. But one thing that really sticks out to me was like one of the very first projects I did, like with the Rooted Architecture Studio, was a major addition for a family who the husband and wife were on their retirement track. He was retiring the following year. She was teacher. She was going to retire in probably like 5, 6 years, and they didn't want to move. They wanted to make that their forever home, but they want to really renovate it to an extent that it felt like a completely new space. Like they were on vacation, and at the end of the project, they came to me like, "Oh, we feel like we're living in Florida, like we're in a vacation home." So that always felt good to me. And the addition wasn't crazy. It was like one story back like addition. We did a den. We did a super big kitchen for them because their family. We did a 15-foot long kitchen island. So that was a fun detailing nuances because I got to do little cool quirks and a lot of windows. They love natural light, so we use that element of bringing like biophilic elements like natural light, colors that were calming, brought in like very nautical aesthetic. So we did a lot of blues. But what got to me too in that project, and I think that's what got me into the deep dive in my research of sensory friendly architecture, was because they had a daughter who is my age, who is autistic, and she had a certain routine. and a certain way she used the spaces that we ended up renovating. So part of the design was also how can she use the new space and feel comfortable. So I started to think like that island, there was one end of the island was more of like a breakfast table. That was where she would station herself and do her play on her iPad or do arts and crafts while her mom could still cook and have interaction time with her, but it wouldn't take up the whole island space. So we kind of created dualities in the space, which was really fun for me.
Nice. That's neat when you can come in and kind of redesign a space and multiply the usefulness of it.
Hmm.
My dad right now is renovating his house. It's an older home, probably maybe built in the 50s or something. And so, very small closets,
Yeah.
kind of a funky layout. There's several closets that don't really make sense why they're there. And it's like a shallow, almost like the depth of a bookshelf. And it's like, why is
Oh,
this closet here? And why is it only the depth of a bookshelf? It's kind of weird, but he's tearing a bunch of walls out and moving. Nothing with him is ever easy or simple. It's always like super convoluted. He's moving load bearing walls. So that multiplies the complexity of it all.
yeah.
But he enjoys doing that, and in the end he's going to make it his own, and it's going to be his space designed how he wants it, and he's going to love it. That's going to be the end
Yeah.
result.
Yeah. And I can mentally empathize with what he's probably going through because there is this ongoing saying like an architect's worst client is themselves because we know it, we know what we know, but at the same time we have a higher expectation of ourselves. So then we're like, we can do this and that, and then just we get looped into the full tunnel vision of this is what we want, this is how we're going to get it, and then you get caught up with everything else in life. You're like, but I want to get it done. Sometimes
Yep.
some I know architects that begin working on their home and trying to do some of the work themselves, and it's 20 years later and they're still not done.
Oh my gosh, yeah, this remodel has been on his list for a long, long time, and he's slowly getting through it. The house is kind of a wreck right now, but he's working around it. One of the first things he had to do was get his hot water heater replaced, and of
Mhm.
course he couldn't just replace the hot water heater after my previous explanation about moving the load bearing walls, right? So he replaces the hot water heater with a tankless because he wants better, and it has like a recirculating feature, which is pretty cool. So when he gets up in the morning, he doesn't have to, go in the shower and warm the water up. He just turns the hot water on. It's already hot because it's been recirculating the water.
Yeah.
It's a cool feature. But of course, it took this whole ordeal to redesign where the hot water heater was because they had to move a bunch of lines around and it's not plumbed the same way. And I told him, I said, you need to be recording all this stuff because you need to
Yeah.
document it and you can go back and look at it and have fond memories of all the things you had to overcome to get the house to where it is today. Once it's all said and done with, right? It's not fun looking back on it now, but when you're done with it, you can look back and say, hey, this is the starting point.
Yeah.
This is what I got it to, and this is all the benefit it added. And he wants to add solar and a bunch of other stuff. Do you integrate a lot of green energy into your designs?
Two, I advocate for it a lot. Sometimes it's one of those things that when clients are looking at the end cost of construction ends up being value engineered. But when we do apply it, they really see the return on investment. What I really like push is, at least in New York, because we have 90, 100-degree days to below 0-degree days. We need to really have a well insulated exterior. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
big on going beyond what our energy code is because it also saves you on electrical bills at the end of the day. When it's cold or hot, you can maintain like a very comfortable temperature, like in the high 60s, if we use the right windows, the right insulation. And then I go forward with really educating people on geothermal and solar panels too, and how the upfront investment can be a long-term savings for them. Especially now, come in January 1st of 2026, New York is instating their new building code. And that one, any new construction for any building between 1 and 7 stories will have to be all electric. So cost wise, air for heat pumps may be cheaper at the beginning. If you install geothermal, it lasts longer because by that time
Right.
you finish paying your geothermal will probably be like 10, 12 years, even with rebates. But by that same year, your Air Force heat pump, who what is about 50% of the cost, would be dead by then, so you have to replace it after that time. And in 10, 15 years, those air heat pumps will be more expensive. And
Sure.
geothermal saves you on your electrical bill. So I designed an addition for a little ranch house, and with geothermal and solar panels, after like 6 years, they were being able to get like their monies back because of all the savings they were going to have in their electrical bill.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have I think it's about 37, 38 panels, solar panels on our roof. And then we also have Tesla power walls, which are really nice. Again, I'm into technology, like I was mentioning earlier. I love the technology surrounding the power walls. It can detect when an inbound storm system is coming, and it will charge the power walls to 100% from the grid. And then if
Okay.
there's an outage, it won't use any of that power during the storm. And then once the storm passes, it starts pulling from the batteries. It'll drain them down to whatever predefined amount you have. 20%, I think, is the recommended. But it'll use that power that you've stored up to
Hmm.
then run the house after the storm system's passed. And then, of course, the next morning, again, the solar panels will charge the battery back up. And then if the solar panels have enough juice to charge the battery back up and they still have left over, it's early enough in the day or whatnot, then it'll sell the excess energy back to the grid. So it's really neat the way it works and kind of interconnects the batteries in the house and the solar and minimizes your grid usage as much as possible. That's basically the goal of it. And it would be neat to think like, hey, if, every house in the neighborhood had the power wall and the solar panels, like how much could you reduce the overall grid usage
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
whole if you could
Sure.
leverage that across
Yeah.
whole neighborhoods? But yeah, it's interesting. So you like to incorporate green energy in there. Do you prefer to do commercial or residential? What's your preference? What's more fun? What do you enjoy?
I like them both. I think they both have their own uniqueness, and that's why I don't super focus on one type, because I like to be able to have variety. It keeps my
Right.
creativity, and they can talk to each other. So I love commercial because it's more nuanced, more detailed. You really have to like think about all the little elements of how everything's connected. Who's the client? Who's the employees? Who's the end use? If it's retail, how do you bring people in and attract them? The space itself becomes a marketing tool about your brand. So that's my favorite part about commercial, of like really bringing that in. In residential, it's the customization. If like every home, at least for me, I believe it's client centric design. It's not like, I would say like the one person that I do admire a lot, and I can see why it was him, is Frank Lloyd Wright. He was creative and beyond his time with like technology didn't catch up to the way he was thinking and designing. So he has a very peculiar style. The way I talk about my firm and me is that I don't have a peculiar style. I design to my clients' needs. So that's why I love
Right.
architecture, because everything's different. I'm not going to do. There's a few elements do again, or like take get inspiration, but it's never a copy paste unless I work with a developer and we're doing like a 10 house subdivision and he only wants 3 berry. But besides that, it's very customized. I used to do that.
Nice.
Like my very first full-time job out of college, we did a lot of developer work out in East Hamptons, in the in like East and West Hamptons, and I was designing like big mansions, and they're like, all right, there's 3 versions of floor plan, there's 6 versions of the facade, let's just mix and match. And that's how they would sell those homes, and they would go for, I don't know, $2-3 million homes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And there's only a limited number of styles to choose from.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, it's the location. You were in the Hamptons, you had that like the accessibility, like it was location.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like here, like on Long Island, like we have one of the first towns that was kind of like the first developments of suburbia, Levittown. Every house was literally copy paste. It was a kit. And then over time, now you can drive through the streets, and there are differentiations. People add additions, they look different, but there's still those little nooks that you drive through, and you're like, oh, those 4 houses do look still literally identical, maybe just different siding color.
Interesting. Where'd you come up with the name Rooted Architecture Studio?
It's layered. I'm big on nature. So on the personal level, I love hiking, I love skiing, I love being by the water. It's the way I kind of ground myself. But also in terms of being an immigrant, like being having roots here and in another country, or really understanding the value of creating roots and those networks of with people, and like either literal or figuratively. And I also think it plays a really nice play on the design that you, in order to have a good architecture building or project, you need a really good foundation.
Yep.
And that's again a tree. There's roots are the foundation, so it's layered in those aspects. And I like I said, I love nature, and I think we can learn so much from trees too. Their structure, the way they grow, they expand, how they're like as above so below, their roots match their branches, things like that. So through biophilic design that I really like, it's that idea of like biomimicry. How can we use the systems in natural design in nature to create man-made spaces that can withstand time?
It's interesting. I spoke with a gentleman down in, I want to say it's Brazil, and he had a very environmentally conscious architectural firm where they designed, trying to disturb as little of the surrounding nature as possible and make it as continue to
Ethical.
keep the environment as usable for the natural habitat of the
Mhm.
animals and whatnot as they could. And he was telling me about how there are certain areas they'd have to, I guess, make the buildings elevated because there were you know jaguars and or leopards or whatever lives there natively, that you want to make sure that they weren't easily getting into these areas. And I was like, that's kind of scary. Like I don't know if I could live at a in an area where the natural predators are basically apex predators like leopards and jaguars and things like that. That's really dangerous. I think a lot of these were resorts and stuff like that. So they probably had tall walls around them and things, but if something wants to get in bad enough, it'll find a way,
Yeah,
and if it's hungry enough.
that's
So it
true.
just doesn't sound like a safe place to put a resort. But it was interesting just hearing him describe it. They take great
Mhm.
care in preserving the environment as much as possible, which is good. I like that. Well, cool. As we get to the end of our podcast, I wanted to ask you what kinds of technology, since I own a IT company, we focus on supporting clients with technology. What kind of
Mhm.
technology do you guys use in your day-to-day business?
We have several. I try to keep up the best I can, but also size wise, like a smaller firm can only go so far. A larger firm can have a larger infrastructure for those technologies. So on the back end, I guess administrative end, like I use like a CRM, I use HubSpot, I have like a project management tool that they talk to each other. I really been trying to implement automations and integrations. And in terms of architectural, and we used to be an AutoCAD architecture firm. I'm in transition to Revit. I see the value of now going to Revit now that we're taking on bigger projects. There is landscaping, there's different tools that do integrate AI. So there's a website called Upcodes that help you understand building codes a little easier, or get diagrams. It's easier for me to then explain to my team, hey, let's do this detail. So I use different products like that. And there's a company called Render that I use whenever we have, simplified renderings and we need to just get a couple quick ideas out. We can put in our 3D model elevation or images, and the AI creates a more photorealistic rendering. So it gives people options of how they
Okay.
need to look. And I do use ChatGPT, for various things of like more on the back end of like marketing tools, ideas, just to stay in touch with certain things. And I'm always trying to see how else we can integrate um AI or other technologies. Although I do have to put that little caveat where AI and all of that, but I also in my the conscious side of me also is cautious of how much I use it, because we are now every time you use AI, you're using so much energy, so much power. You're creating this mega data centers that excrete a lot of heat, and it is affecting our the green overall like global heat issues. So it's this weird duality of like it's necessary because if not you stay back in time.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like how can I be efficiently use it minimally without putting too much into that like negativity. Like I feel like if we could find a way to use it without creating this negative effects to our environment, it would be so much more useful. But I see the beauty in it. My brother is in the medical field. He's been using machine learning since he did at the beginning of his PhD, and I see the beautiful progress you do in the medical field thanks to machine
Yep.
learning and AI.
AI is incredible. The things it can do, I think we barely scratched the surface. And we try to be on the AI side of things. That's what LogicWire does. We try to be responsible in our AI. We're not trying to displace people. You mentioned automation earlier. That's one area that we help people with. Automation is important, obviously, because you can then multiply your efforts because you're not having to do all this process manually. So we try to find ways in our IT company with SC Tech to automate process and procedure. That way we can increase profitability. We can continue to grow, get more clients, and then in turn hire more technicians.
Mhm.
So we always want to have the goal of hiring more people, but using AI to augment what they're already doing. So it's
Yeah.
augment, not replace.
Yeah, it's maximizing in people's skills and the things that are, like the non-important tasks can become the automated kind of repeatable elements that see
Correct. Yep.
allows you to be creative and productive. And I think also technology becomes an important part of even design, like the idea of bringing a whole AV, a low voltage system into a home for automation recording. If you're away on vacation, you have leaking detection, so you don't come back for a 5 6 figure damage, if in case someone left the faucet open and then it floods, or even like I've seen so many people like going on vacation and they turn their whole AC system off and they come back to a mold everywhere in their home because they don't understand that like there's humidity, there's so many nuances that like we have breathable buildings.
Yep.
Like there's so many things like that. So yeah, technology can be amazing for that, and also like connecting your lights to your shades, so then you can mimic natural light for your circadian rhythm. But also like knowing like, hey, you can trigger lighting or sound triggers for your kids to know, hey, it's time to get to bed, or waking up yourself. Like you can slowly turn on your lights in the morning so you don't have this harsh alarm waking you up. You allow yourself to have a natural waking up. There's so many like little things that you can do with
Yep.
technology even in your home, but the idea is like how can we make it affordable for everyone? And right now it's like certain things are accessible by most, other things you have to create really custom homes like in that higher end level in order to integrate them.
Yeah. No, it's all very fascinating. I'm excited to see where it goes.
Mhm.
What other closing thoughts do you have before we wrap it up?
Closing thoughts. Well, I think I guess connecting both architecture and technology, like there, like you said, we openly touch so much, and there's so much progress to be made. I think as people, if we don't depend on AI, but we use it as a tool instead to then make us our growth and our intelligence grow in itself, that's where we will make true progress. If we just depend on it to think for us at all times, then we might backtrack, which that's I see people sometimes doing that.
Yeah, I think people do that a little bit too much, is depend on it's like, I don't want to think. I just want it to tell me the answer.
Yeah.
It's like, well, and AI too it's garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't know how to prompt it, you don't know how to ask it questions, you're not going to get the answer you're looking for.
Yeah.
So it's only as good as the information that you feed into it. So garbage in, garbage out. Katherine, I really appreciate all your time today. I enjoyed having you on. I enjoyed visiting about architecture. Like I said, architecture is very special to me since my dad used to be an architect. I love architecture. I love going and seeing buildings that have unique floor plans and designs to them. Same thing with houses. I was briefly in real estate because I was I thought that might have been my calling before I started SD Tech.
Mhm.
But ultimately, I came back to technology. So I love what I do. We love our clients. We love building resilient systems and things like that, and helping people out. But thank you again for your time today. And I think we should do another call sometime in the future when you're not too busy with all your clients. But I appreciate your time and thank you very much again, Katherine Serrano with Rooted Architecture Studio. Appreciate you having you on today.
Thank you. I had a really great time speaking to you.
Yes, ma'am. Goodbye, everyone.